Welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, and that's Badass Wood Art. I just realized that we never got to touch on the Senior Bowl. Myles and I were down in Mobile last week, so we thought it'd be a good opportunity to just hop on here and chat about kind of what we saw. Ryan was watching from the telecast, so obviously the Vikings have a ton of needs this offseason across the board. And we got a first opportunity to kind of look at some of these guys who may be day 2, day 3, potentially fringe day 1 guys who could step in and help the Vikings out. So was there anybody who kind of caught your guys' eye last week during the Senior Bowl? I know I have a couple, but I'll wait to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, I can go first. When watching the Senior Bowl, he didn't actually pop out that much, but I felt like the linebackers as a whole, I didn't really see them flash too much. I saw a couple of guys who had a good sack here, or penetrated well here, but a guy that I liked who was at the Senior Bowl, and I think he played well during the week of practices, is DeMarvion Overshown. He's a linebacker from Texas. He's a guy that I'm pretty excited about, and I think could really fit in well with this team, especially with Brian Flores coming in. I think he provides a level of versatility that you can get at that you really need in a scheme like ours, where he's a former safety, right? So he's actually good in space. He's good at coverage. He has that sideline to sideline ability, and he's actually an excellent blitzer. Where some of his concerns are is getting off blocks. He's a little slimmer. I mean, granted, he's a big dude. He's 6'3", like 220, 6'4", 220, something like that. But he has a hard time, getting off the blocks and deconstructing that a little bit. And sometimes his eyes wander a little, which can get him in trouble. But for the most part, I think he's a solid play. Again, I'm not one to advocate for Texas guys often, as you guys know, but he's just one of those guys that I saw him making impactful play after impactful play throughout his career against my Sooners, and as well as the rest of the Big 12.
He looked good at practice too. I mean, I think it was really day 3 where, I mean, I had noticed him throughout the week, but I think it was day 3 where Myles kind of like gave me the elbow and was like, "You see that guy right there?" And then we kind of watched him the rest of that practice, and yeah, he was somebody that I was definitely interested after taking a look. I didn't see how he performed in the game, but obviously you checked out some tape, obviously when he played against your Sooners. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and he's one of those guys to hit on what you were talking about, Ryan. He's also one of those guys that when the get off the bus types, like he just looks the part, and then you see him in pads. All the other like linebackers in Mobile are pretty short.
they
Like
look
the
small.
6'1", 6 foot, 5'11" guys. Overshown kind of has that like long rangy look to him,
Yeah.
like maybe like a tall safety. Because I know he converted, but like he definitely has that look about him. But it seems like there's still room to gain a little bit of weight. But in today's NFL, with that where everything's transitioning to, with more speed, more like range, he definitely fits that bill too. So I really like seeing him do that. And then some of that physicality. I know he's a little skinnier, but like I think he could stand to gain another 5 to 10 pounds and still keep some of that speed. So I think that'd be no problem.
I mean, guys, just imagine you have a Sooner and you have a Longhorn in that linebacker room. They're going to have some competition amongst each other because they don't like each other. I know they won't. And so it's going to iron sharpens iron. They're going to challenge each other and make each other better, and they're going to make a great duo. Yeah, I would be really excited about that.
On your conversation quick just about like linebackers, we did really pay attention to them on the most on day 3, but gosh, I'm forgetting their first names, but I just remember the jersey. So you got Pace Jr., who I think was from Cincy.
Ivan,
yeah, and there was one in the one-on-one drills versus the running backs where he just absolutely destroyed.
That was Chase Brown, I think. I think it was Chase Brown.
But then
Henley
just destroyed.
Ryan was telling me how good he thought Chase Brown looked, and I was like sitting there like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
and what I was saying how good Chase Brown looked, it was one play I saw. It was like the first play I saw from the telecast, and he does look good on tape. If you actually go back and look at the Illinois tape, he looks pretty good.
Henley also looked good on that last day. Mm-hmm. And he had one, I think, I think it might have been Tyjae Spears where he blew him up in one-on-one drills as well. And he looked good in coverage too. But Myles, I know you wanted to touch on at least some cornerbacks and some wide receivers. So
that's my bread and butter. Like that's why I love fantasy so much. I can focus on the skill players more than I can focus on the trenches, because those guys they're really hard to assess. But kind of, we were talking ahead of the show. I think the cornerback group as a whole was really strong in the Senior Bowl last week. And I know there were some underclassmen as well that helped make this class even better. But just a few guys that I thought really stood out in the Senior Bowl, and guys that could even be fits for the Vikings, especially as we know with Brian Flores coming in. I thought Julius Brents, the Kansas State kid, really long, really lengthy. I think there's an opportunity to be like a press man type corner. That he has that ability. Really good kid too. He was really nice to talk to. But then also Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford.
That's my guy.
He's really good. He really has that versatile inside out ability, which I'm really looking for the Vikings to like find a guy that they don't have to be primary nickel players, but guys that you can like interchange with, because I think that's such an important position in today's NFL. And I think Caillou Blue Kelly has a little bit of that. I think he can play off coverage. I think he can play man. I think he can interchange a little bit of his coverages. And what I saw last week, I thought he showed versatility and ability to break on the ball as well.
Well, and then Myles, to your point, he even covered it too, right? Like when we went and talked to him after the game, or after the practice, he was like, "Yeah, I can play inside and out. Like it doesn't bother me. I'm comfortable in both spots." So.
Well, and one thing that I noticed too during I think it was actually the game when I was watching the game back, is there's this one play where he's in zone, but it's kind of like that half zone, half man, where once you kind of have your guy kind of established, you kind of follow him a bit. Yep. And I think he did that just a bit early, right? He started following his guy inside a bit early. They threw outside, but he realized that, I think, like, he was like, oh shit, right? Like, and then he turned and he went and made the tackle like right as the guy got the ball. Yeah. Granted, that's a mistake, but that was something where he recognized it. Where like last year, you look at this defense, we had guys running wide open because we're just completely missing the communication or the coverage scheme. So like he seems to be smart, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, and mistakes like that can be like that could have been like a touchdown type mistake, but instead it was a recovery mistake where he makes a tackle like you mentioned. So those types of instincts too, like, a guy might make a mistake, but if he can recognize and react quickly, you can help yourself in those situations. And then the other guy was Tyreek Stevenson. Really thought, I know he ended up getting hurt later in the week, but he's got that press man corner like style down. I think he's one of those guys in this class in the middle rounds that, if the Vikings really wanted to help bolster that room, he'd be a guy to look at too. I know I've seen other people talk about him, but really liked his game. And then Darius Rush, he's the one that really had that stickiness. He was the guy that probably impressed the most out of the cornerbacks, especially in one-on-ones, which, man coverage is the most important skill in a one-on-one setting. So to watch him really not fear anybody, make aggressive plays on the ball, be aggressive with receivers, not letting guys like hand check and those things. So really thought he was impressive. I know he's kind of the buzz guy coming out of last week, but I mean, how could you not like the game that you saw from him? So he's a guy going in the draft process. Just excited to see how he plays out.
The buzz with Rush at the end of last week was like his recovery ability too. So like not only did he have like strong reps versus the wide receivers, but when he did mess up, he's got the speed to recover so quickly and make contested plays on the ball. It was fun to watch him for sure.
You don't get buzz unless you earn it, right? And I think he's been overlooked a little bit throughout the process, early in the process, because he's got an all-star teammate on the other side in Cam Smith, right? So when you have that, sometimes you get a little bit overlooked. But I mean, there's been players throughout the last few drafts who have a superstar teammate on one side, and then they kind of get overlooked, but they play well when they get to the league. Before we switch over to offense, Myles, another guy on defense I think we all kind of liked, through conversations we've had already is Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. So
but we hate Wisconsin here because technically we're Gopher fans, so let's just make that clear.
I'm a Sooners fan. I don't care about that rivalry. No, you're right. I actually despise Wisconsin. But in Flores's defense, I think obviously corners are really important because they're going to be on islands and they're going to be stuck on their own. But it's almost just as important to his defense that he has really strong pass rush, especially from the interior. So you take a look at some of the past defenses that they've had. Christian Wilkins, right? One of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. And I think Keanu Benton has a little bit, again, I'm not trying to say he'll be Christian Wilkins, he'll be Chris Jones, but he has a little bit of that, just that raw power, that ability to kind of head defenders and the ability to penetrate inside. And you kind of saw that evident at the Senior Bowl and during practices and whatnot. He gave a lot of those interior linemen a run for their money. So he's somebody that I think that we all should be looking at. He's probably going to be a second, third round pick, unless he just shoots up the boards throughout the process. But
did he get a combine invite?
Yeah.
Okay. Because there were a couple of guys I noticed this week that did not, that I was surprised about. I can't recall who they were off the top of my head, but
real quick, Matt, my last cornerback that I went into the week kind of liking, he played like his teammates, probably a guy that's I would assume goes top 50, top 75 in Deonte Banks, but Jacorian Bennett was a guy that I liked. I think he's a good nickel player. I think he's one of those guys that's sticky. He's aggressive as well. So I thought he was another guy from Maryland that I just thought could be a guy if you really wanted a primary nickel type player. He has that versatility. So I liked his game a little bit last week as well. He kind of went overshadowed.
Sure.
For sure, man. All right. So offensive side of the ball, and we are trying to keep it geared towards the Vikings, right? I mean, the offense is easy to pick and choose from, but who are some offensive guys that caught your eye last week?
I can jump on this one real quick. I think we talk about. I've said this all offseason so far. Is the one thing I want the Vikings to do, especially with a defense that needs revamping. I'd like them to use cap space to help revamp the defense. Continue to keep building that offense through the draft, just because I think the offense is the most expensive side of the ball that they have. I think there's a lot of guys that are young that they're continuing to build around. So let's build that foundation with some more young core pieces. But we've talked, I think for a couple of years now, wide receiver needs to be another position that needs to be addressed. And there are a lot of underclassmen I think the Vikings can consider, or guys that weren't even at the Senior Bowl. But speaking of the Senior Bowl, a couple of guys that just really stood out to me. Day one, Michael Wilson, Stanford. To me, he was the best wide receiver.
Myles had a huge crush on him.
I did
all week long.
Well, because the funny part for me is going in, I didn't really get to watch him. So
yeah,
and there really wasn't a lot of tape on him out there. So his first warm-ups, I was telling Matt, I was like, all right, this dude's got something. Like he's a guy I just need to keep an eye on during warm-ups, and so.
It's easy to fall in love with that release package he has off the line of scrimmage there. I'll tell you that.
I was like, that dude's pretty big, and his ability to have quick feet, even just in warm-ups. So I wrote that down the second I saw him. I was like, all right, let me see if this guy's can do something. And then his one-on-ones and releases, his ability to just get open and create contested catches and separation. So that was just a guy that really excited me. And so I know there's some injury history and concerns there. So he's more of a guy that you take a chance on in like the middle rounds because of that, like third, fourth, fifth round. But I take a chance on that all day because there's some upside there that I think could pair, especially for the Vikings who could use that big-bodied X receiver that can win downfield. Like you think the Mike Williams, T. Higgins, Gabe Davis types, those guys that can win downfield and win on the outside. Those are the kind of guys I'd love to spend a mid-round pick on and solidify that position to play opposite JJ.
Hold Myles.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna just jump in real quick. The original draft crush that Myles had, which I stole very swiftly.
You did steal it.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed. I'm going to take it. And you can have Michael Wilson, and I'll take Cincy wide receiver Trey Tucker, who I don't think is going to be like this star in the league by any means. But I mean, if you get him on the right team, um, who can utilize his skill set, I mean, kid is fast and he's shifty. He's got this. We talked about it all week. He's got this twitchiness to him. But additionally, like I saw him returning punts, and I thought he looked great there. I don't think he dropped one all week, which granted it's practice, but still, the other thing that kind of caught my eye with him was just like him taking these mental reps. So like while the rest of the players are going through like their individual drills, he was on the side doing the same thing until he was ready to go. And when you talk about people you want in your locker room, with that mindset and that work ethic, I think Trey Tucker would be a good guy that, I mean, you take him later, obviously, but he could come in and Kevin O'Connell could maybe use him in sort of those package roles, maybe how they wanted to use Jalen Reagor this past season, but just didn't get a chance to. So,
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. We're on late round guys, right? Let's keep it going on offense. Late round guys.
do it.
So another, obviously I'm going to do it. So, so another kind of a sneaky need that we're going to end up having, I think, I could be wrong, is we might lose Tyjae Ham this offseason. We're tight against the cap. He's $3 million against. Well, we can save $3 million.
Where are you going with this one, Ryan?
You know where I'm going. So a player, you take a look at Kevin O'Connell's offense. You take a look at the utilization of CJ Ham this year. It was pretty non-existent, right? I mean, he came in at times, but he really wasn't used that much. So rather than carrying a fullback on your team, let's go ahead and go draft a guy who could be an H-back, a tight end, who can fill in at fullback as needed, right? Kind of a utility player. And I think that's Braden Willis from Oklahoma. So you take a look at the
need to get
play
that alarm.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. You take a look at what we did this year, or what he did this year at the Senior Bowl. He showed huge competency in inline blocking on the line of scrimmage, going up against Will McDonald, who's arguably considered a late first, early second round pick, and he's just pushing him inside, or he's getting him outside, and he's allowing the play to happen, right? Great inline blocker. He did that at Oklahoma for quite some time here. He also lined up in the backfield and going and being a lead blocker. I remember one play he got really lit up by a linebacker. I can't remember which one. But outside of that, he held his own at the fullback position as a blocker for most of the week. And then he can get out and pass catch.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a lot of experience in Oklahoma's offense, going out and catching the ball. I know he missed one during practices where I'm like, oh, you probably should have had that. It was a low throw, but he probably still could have had that, but still made quite a few plays during practices. And then lastly, again, this wasn't shown at practice at all, but he has Wildcat quarterback experience in Oklahoma too. So, just another gadget for you to utilize in these scenarios where maybe you want a bigger guy to carry the ball in a short yardage situation and not lean on Kirk to do that. So, I'm a big fan of his.
I thought he played really well all week, and he wasn't really talked about too much, but it was noticeable, especially his inline blocking ability. I mean, I think he was manhandling some of those edge rushers, which was really cool to see. So we'll have a lot more conversation about prospects as the offseason continues to go. Maybe we'll divvy up some position-specific episodes here, but
real quick, can we talk about? I think running back was the last position that I just wanted to touch on
that quick,
because we don't know what the Vikings are going to do. We know that with Dalvin Cook, we obviously know that Alexander Madison's a free agent. They have Ty Chandler and Kenny Nwangu, who are young, unproven, but not really guys. I don't think that they're going to just build their offense, their running game around. And I thought Evan Hall was probably, him and Tyjae Spears were probably the two best running backs in Mobile last week. I think both guys brought that ability to run between the tackles, but also outrun and catch the football. I think I posted a video of Tyjae Spears running an amazing route in 101s. It was
You're
really
underselling
cool to see.
that. Murdering someone on the route.
He did. But
that man has a family.
Right. But no, I think running back in like the middle to late rounds is something that the Vikings really should consider rather than going and spending money on it. Go get somebody that we've been able to see. The one thing the Vikings haven't done is, yes, they've drafted mid to late round running backs, but they've always had a guy that they drafted early. They've always had the second round, third round, and obviously the Adrian Peterson was the last first round running back. But Dalvin Cook, Jerick McKinnon, Toby Gerhart, all these like day 2 guys that they've taken. Alexander Madison was a late day 2 pick. But I think, if you were to take a third round, fourth, fifth round running back again, you might be able to get really good
return.
A good return there. Thank you. And like Evan Hall, I think Evan Hall could be that perfect fit. I think Tyjae Spears probably worked himself up a little bit in that range, like third round range, late second, early, like, third, fourth round. But I think like an Evan Hall could really fit that like do it all type of back that the Vikings could be looking for. That doesn't need to have the 20, 25 touches to be successful.
And I'm also interested in Kenny McIntosh. I know he didn't pop a ton, but he has good hands. I know, watching from Georgia, he's a bigger back, very fast. So again, another guy that's probably going to go later that you might find diamond in the rough. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I said, we'll touch on all these positions as the offseason continues to progress, but great to at least capitalize on the fact that we did go to the Senior Bowl and we can talk about some of these prospects. So until next time, SKOL Vikes.